Wicker and Sherry Day from the U of M Kellogg Eye Center to talk to us about low vision services.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us, and it's really great to see a lot of familiar faces here. Today, our goal is really just to present to you how Kellogg Eye Center incorporates low vision into our clinics and the multidisciplinary aspects of our clinic. So let's get started. In general, most of our low vision patients are referred to us either by outside ophthalmologists or in-house or other optometrists as well. Dr. Wicker and I, we do all the low vision assessments of the vision. And from there, we prescribe adaptive devices, optical devices, and refer to the occupational therapist, orientation mobility specialist, and social worker as needed. And our social worker is actually here, Jan. She's new to Kellogg Eye Center, so you'll be seeing her at Kellogg Eye Center as well. So what is a low vision patient? That's one of the most common questions we get. You've probably heard of the definition or the term legal blindness, and that is just a definition of 2200 or worse, worse in the better corrected eye. So that's just a U.S. Legal definition, and that qualifies you for certain resources beyond that. There's also definition of visual impairment, which is 20/70 or worse, as defined by Medicaid. And for our intents and purposes at the clinic, low vision is just anyone whose vision is now reduced enough that it's impairing your daily activities. What are some of the common diseases that cause vision impairment? And many of you have already heard of macular degeneration or diabetic retinopathy, glaucoma, optic neuropathy. And there are other inherited disorders as well, such as retinitis pigmentosa. So those different diseases will present different types of vision impairments that we'll address in a little bit. When Dr. Wicker and I see you for the low vision exam, we start off with a very detailed functional history because we want to customize the exams to achieve your vision goals. So what is it that you need to or want to do during your day? We asked about your living situation, your meal preparation, personal finances, any medications, or if you're diabetic, if you can see your strips and glucometer, etc. This is just a list of a few tests we'll do. Distance, we test your acuity, the 20 whatever number. That in and of itself gives us an idea, but it's not encompassing in terms of understanding your vision. So we'll do further testing, such as contrast sensitivity, which will affect your ability to see curves and steps, especially on a gray day. And we need to know your visual field, how much of the side vision or central vision you do have, and that helps us to address some of your goals as well. So this is just a couple pictures showing on the left side someone who has normal vision. Everything might be really clear, colorful to you, but somebody with impaired vision, it'll be really difficult to see. You see how the contrast is reduced, everything's blurry. You might be able to make out the flower, but you don't know what type of flower it is. So macular degeneration is one of the most common acquired diseases we see in the clinic, and that is, in general, a central vision loss. So at the macula, that's where our color vision is, our detail vision is. So most of the patients will complain, I can't read very well, I can't see details, my color is going, it's hard for me to distinguish my clothing. So those are some of the most common functional issues that we have with macular degeneration. And also with macular degeneration, you'll hear of the dry and the wet type. So they're treated differently, but I'm not going to go into the treatment for our purpose today. Glaucoma and peripheral vision loss. So peripheral vision loss can be from glaucoma or retinitis pigmentosa or other diseases. This is just an idea to give you an idea of what the patients see. So with reduced peripheral vision, you'll have difficulty navigating unfamiliar areas. So if I have just a central vision like this, I won't be able to see the walls, I won't be able to see the dogs here, so I'm likely to trip over things. So that's important for us to know how much of the side vision you have. Diabetic retinopathy can present with a variety of different symptoms. It's not just central, it's not just peripheral, depending on where the scarring is and what kind of surgery has been done. So it could be just spotty vision. could be just blurry vision. So as I mentioned before, we take your visual acuity, which is the 20 whatever number, and traditionally when you come to our clinic, we have one of our electronic system where you read these letters off the chart. But if you can't read those, then we move into different types of charts where we actually can hold it in front of you, and we can measure that distance, and we can still kind of get some numbers, so we know exactly what your visual status. In near vision, it's important for us to know where you're at now and what you want to read. So for example, if you're reading the very largest word, it's game up there on the right side. If you're reading the largest word up there, but you want to read newsprint, it could be 7 or 8 rows down. So that helps us to determine what type and how much magnification you need. And you'll see that there's different ways to notate vision. Visual acuity, like 20 whatever numbers, but for the near vision, we would use what we call M notation because that has an exact measurement in terms of millimeter height to a letter. So that helps us to exactly know what size, how much magnification to give you. So we always start off by making sure you have the best correction on you. Remember, the legal definition is best corrective vision, 2200 or worse. That's either with contacts and or glasses. So we'll always double check that because if we don't catch your refractive error, what we call refractive error, it could kind of skew our calculations for your magnification. So we'll do it different ways. The bottom right photo, if you could see that, is what we call a phoropter. It's a very traditional machine that we put most people through, but that does not allow for what we call eccentric viewing. So for macular degeneration patients, they want to use their side vision sometimes to view. And so we have to use a trial frame refraction. So I mentioned contrast sensitivity, which is important in seeing curves and steps. So we will test you with a chart that has fading letters. It's called the Pelley-Robson chart. And for your central vision or your peripheral vision, there's different ways we test this. So central vision test is, many of you might have the answer grid at home, especially for macular degeneration, to see if there's any changes in the lines, if it's wavy, it's curvier. And that's really for central vision. And the peripheral vision test, we need to do that, especially if those of you who are trying to maintain your driver's license or want to go back and get a driver's license. And that helps our orientation mobility specialist to know how much field of view you have that he has to work with. Lighting is a huge component to reading and to doing any of your tasks, as many of you know. So it's not necessarily true that the brightest is better, because that can create too much glare for some eye conditions. So we test you what your optimal condition would be. The warmth of the light, the brightness of the light, the combination together is what would work best for you. So once we know your vision status, then we're able to calculate how much magnification and what you need to achieve your vision goals. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're reading some of the largest words up there and that's all you could read, we then calculate how much magnification to get you to read, say, the newsprint, if that's what you want to read. The devices will come in different ways. One of the reading devices could be that we just need to really increase your reading prescription. So many of us have bifocals. So most of the stores, for example, they come up to like a 350 or 325. Those readers are not necessarily sufficient for our low vision patients. In our low vision clinic, we have reading glasses that can go up to 8x, which means it's at 32 diopters, which means it focuses right about 3 centimeters. Another traditional way to magnify is with a handheld magnifier. Those are portable, they're battery operated, and all of our handheld magnifiers come with a built-in light so that you can control the lighting. Remember, lighting is really important to reading. So let's say you're in a restaurant and it's half the lighting here. So you'll have control of the lighting there on your own. The other way to read with a magnifier is called a stand magnifier. It stands on its own. So the one I'm showing you actually is is situated in such a way that you can get a pen or pencil under there and you can actually sign right under that stand magnifier. Again, those are all illuminated with battery power as well. Another way to read is also with a near telescope. We can, like this man over here in the upper right corner, we have prescribed a telescope for reading, so he has to hold it a little closer depending on the power of the telescope. The telescope, of course, is used differently for distance as well. So the bottom left is a focusable, sort of like a binocular telescope, and that's called the Max TV. If you guys have, some of you guys might have that. It's really for distance focusing. The only thing about the telescopes that to remember is that it magnifies, so it reduces your field of view. The Bioptic Telescope is one that's mounted in a pair of frames and pair of glasses, and it's angled up because you're not looking through it the whole time. The Bioptic Telescope is legal in many of the states with certain criteria to go along with that. So in Michigan, you have to have adequate side vision in addition to the visual acuity through the telescope. And in Michigan, you have to go through certified driving school training to obtain this. But the telescope basically gives you two views. One view, the other eye has just a general regular view, and then through the telescope it's magnified. So you can imagine why you have to go through training to learn how to use it safely. So beyond magnification, we can look, we also prescribe or recommend electronic magnification like the e-reader or Kindle, computer accessibility or phone accessibility functions to increase the contrast and the font size. So in our clinic, this is just an example of what difference it makes to have a larger monitor to the right versus a regular computer monitor to the left. It's the same, we're looking at the same thing, but it's just easier to read on the right. Glare can be an issue, as I mentioned earlier too. If it's too bright indoors or outdoors, it can just wash out a lot of details. So we want to make sure to do some glare control testing as well while you're in the clinic. So for macular degeneration patients, central vision loss, one of the things we have done are still doing at the Kellogg Eye Center is the implantable miniature telescope surgery. So for those who qualify, it is a telescope permanently implanted into your eye. So you can imagine that eye will always have that magnified view. Your other eye has to have good peripheral vision for you to navigate. So this requires a lot of testing and training afterwards. And some of you might have heard of the bionic eye. It's officially called the Argus 2, the second phase of it. We were the first ones in all of the US to do that surgery. Dr. Jayasundara and Dr. Zaks are the two surgeons that do it. And this is really for people who used to have vision, but because of retinitis pigmentosa no longer does have any vision or barely any light perception. It's a very extensive surgery, and basically the idea is that the camera mounted on the pair of glasses transmits the input to the processor that's actually in the eye. So it's not so much that the person now sees colors and people, but for example, if the person couldn't even find the doorway, now there's a form and there's a shape to what they see versus not being able to see it at all. And beyond those devices, of course, we can refer to occupational therapy so patients learn how to use these devices well, and to make sure that actually can do home visits to make sure that your home setting is optimal for your eye condition. So I'm going to have Dr. Wicker go through some of the cases to see how we put this all together for patients.
All right, so we'll go through a couple of stories to give you an idea of what our patients are doing in their lives and what kind of equipment they might be using. So case one, an 84-year-old gentleman with macular degeneration has a history of getting injections of anti-inflammatory medications for 5 years. And his main problem was recognizing faces, reading his local newspaper, and watching TV. His best corrected vision was in the 20/70 range in his better eye, and he had a regular glasses type bifocal. He also had a little bit of loss of contrast, and when he did that lighting test that Dr. Day mentioned, he had the brightest setting, so he really wanted things to be bold and bright. And this particular patient was comfortable with the computer, but he didn't know about enlarging things, that you can do the Control Plus or other ways to enlarge the font. So in our clinic, we make sure that people are well informed on the different tools that are there and accessible for them. And his son was with him, and frequently family members help our patients to get the equipment they need and give them some support, and he was going to help him get a larger computer monitor. And then this patient also needed some readers to assist with reading the mail and the small print on his local newspaper. And he already had a lighted stand magnifier. So as you can tell, it's not just one item that somebody gets that can do everything. I know I see out in the audience, I see some people using magnifiers, telescopes on glasses, various things. And one person may have 2 or 3 different tools that they use for different activities. So low vision, it takes a while. Sometimes we even call it slow vision because things are kind of lengthy as we have a whole discussion of different options and different things the patient can do. So with this particular patient, he ended up getting a pair of glasses for general looking and walking around. He got readers that were stronger than typical readers to magnify things if he had the smaller print in his mail or newspaper. He was getting a larger computer monitor, and he still had his lighted handheld magnifier for times when things weren't on the computer and as needed. Now our patient could have chosen to use a closed circuit TV. Upstairs in the area with the different tables and booths, there are a couple of different places where you can look at closed circuit TVs. You put the paper underneath, and then there's a little camera that puts the image out enlarged and also enhanced in contrast on the screen. So our job in the low vision clinic is kind of like show and tell. We show people the different options, and then they can decide what might work best for their needs. So I have another case, and the same diagnosis, but just to show you that 2 people could pick entirely different things and don't necessarily, even if they have a similar eye condition, they might not necessarily pick the same favorite glasses to read with. So this next one, an 86-year-old female with macular degeneration, and she just came in saying, I want to see anything. Anything at all I'll appreciate because I just want to see some things. Now she had 3 falls in the past year. We do ask our patients about falls because when the vision is impaired, you are more likely to trip, and there is a higher rate of falls, which can concern us. And this patient wanted to be able to do typical household things like playing cards, reading her medications, looking at her mail. And her best corrected vision was similar to our last gentleman at 20/80. And she had a little bit more of a reduction in contrast sensitivity. So for her, things looked a little blurry, but they also looked a bit faded. And her task lighting was also quite bright. In addition, we did a test called the timed up and go. And really, that is all it is. We have the patient stand up, walk across the room for 10 feet, turn around, walk back, and sit down. And that is one of our tests related to fall risk. So this patient decided to go for high technology equipment, something called the eSight, which I bet many of you have heard about and have seen before. So the eSight is like having a closed circuit TV, and it's mounted in the glasses, and it's kind of like a head unit, so that there's a screen right mounted in there, and you can enhance the contrast, and you can enlarge things as you look around. So as you can imagine, it is kind of expensive. So it's about $8,000 now. Some of the prices are going down because it's new. But you can zoom and have all the bells and whistles. So cost is frequently a big issue. I know when I said that price, a lot of people went, whoa, that's expensive. So the cost factors are difficult, and that's why there's many different agencies that can help people afford to purchase some of these things. or in the schools as well, the students can get access to these things. So now we're going to switch gears and show you another 2 more cases, different types of cases, to just give you an idea of what different people might be doing. So the next case is a 14-year-old boy. He's mainstreamed. He has something called Fanconi's anemia, which has caused a lot of health problems. He missed a lot of school and lost vision over the course of a couple of years. He'd had a bone marrow transplant and graft versus host disease following that. He has cataracts removed and corneal scarring. So it's a disease that affects young people as well, giving them cataracts early on. So he hadn't really been able to read at school, and his attendance at school had been off and on for the previous 2 years because he'd missed so much for his other health issues. He couldn't see a computer screen anymore. He was independent around the house. He would stand on a chair and do some cooking, and that was one of his more favorite things to do, some cooking around the house. And at that time that he visited us, he had a case manager and he had an IEP, an individualized education plan, but he didn't yet have a teacher consultant for the visually impaired because this was a new issue for him. So his vision was a lot worse than the 2 macular degeneration patients I just spoke about. So his vision was in the legally blind range, the 2200 or worse. He was best corrected in that level. And his contrast was way lower as well. So this patient had really poor vision and really faded vision. And he, with his corneal scars, did not like bright lighting. So even though we say, oh, bright lighting is good for most of you, that's true, but not for every person. Some people, too much bright lighting gives you glare. So that's why I want to throw in this example where this person has a vision problem, but it's different from other people's. So some of the optical items are covered by Medicaid. So Medicaid will help people whose vision is 20/70 or worse, and they'll buy some different items, but nothing electronic, and no lighted lamps, but they will do lighted magnifiers. So he was able to use the 4X dome magnifier, which is a little magnifier that sits right on the page, and then he can slide that around the page and look through that in order to get magnification. And he was able to read 20/25, so down to a pretty small print when he was using that magnifier. The other item that Medicaid would cover for him, he got an 8X handheld telescope. So when the telescopes or binoculars are labeled, this one is an 8X30. So it means it makes everything 8 times as big. And then the 30, that second number, is the millimeters across of the outside lens of the telescope. So if you're looking at an astronomer's telescope online and it says 10 by 50, you know it's a big one. So he was using this for distance details so that he would be able to see the board or see the bus numbers to get on the right bus to travel and different details. And he was able to see 20/40 with that. So with that telescope, it was taking him down to a lot smaller size. Now, the item he liked the most was one of the portable closed-circuit TVs. And we actually brought one of these with us today that we have on our table upstairs in that area. So this particular one is called the Ruby 7, but there's several different companies, Freedom Scientific and Humanware, that will make the different items. So you can see some of these in the upstairs. There's a few different vendors, I think. But the cost of that one is $1,399, and Medicaid wouldn't cover that. But sometimes the school districts can get these kind of equipment for the students to use. They may not always belong to the students. They may have to use it at school, but they can get access to all the different equipment through our school districts. But he was enjoying that, and he was kind of cute because he started reading, and it was a story about sharks, and he just went on reading. He didn't want to stop using it. He just wanted to keep reading his story. And then the next case I included is another one of a child, and this condition is called achromatopsia. And I like to throw this into talks because it's so different from a lot of the other eye conditions. It's a rare one that many of you probably have not heard of. But in our eyes, we have cells called rods and cones that collect the light and start the vision processing. The cones are responsible for the color vision and the higher quality and higher vision in the center part of the retina. And then the rods are responsible for the more peripheral retina. And it's our night vision, things like that. So in this particular condition, people are born without having any cones. They have no cones at all, they just have rods. So they don't have color vision, and things are blurrier than they would otherwise be if someone had normal vision. So it's kind of a different kind of eye condition. So when we see patients in the low vision clinic, we need to consider each individual, because you can have different diagnoses, or as we saw from the 2 cases with macular degeneration, you could have 2 people with the same diagnosis that have different needs and different desires for different equipment. So this one is pretty rare. So I did include on the slide a picture of what it might look like for somebody with achromatopsia, which is black and white and blurry, as opposed to the normal view below. So this girl was 5 years old when she first started coming to us, and her vision was in the legally blind range of 2200. She was using some different equipment that we gave her on her first visit. She was using a little handheld telescope, as well as that dome magnifier. And she was also used electronics. She loved the iPad, and she knew a lot of different words. And the kids these days, whether they're fully sighted, low vision, or even totally blind, electronics is a big hit. Whether you're listening to music or watching a show or listening to a book, the different electronic items are great. So for her, we did something different. We went with a contact lens. So they make contact lenses in 3 shades of a reddish color, because red makes these people see better, because they're so light sensitive that they actually have to be dark adapted. So she doesn't have any of the cones that see in the bright light. She's got all these rods, so the sunglasses help her, even indoors. So there are some people who may be wearing sunglasses inside. So the red lenses help the rods function, so it's as if they're dark adapted. So for her, we also did a contact lens. So she was always having her sunglasses on as well as her hat, and that didn't really help her interact with other people. She was always hiding from the light. So we went with the contact lenses that give her a red sunglass, and then when she went outside, she could just add an extra sunglass on top of that. And the mom had emailed me, and she said, "I cannot tell you how amazing the contact lenses have been for her and changed the way the other children and adults interact with her." Because they could see her expression instead of cringing from the light. So anyway, I hope those 4 cases kind of illustrated the different variety of low vision patients we see and how we have to tailor things for each individual's needs. So next I have a little section on some technology, some iPhone and app stuff. Many of the apps are available for iPhones as well as Androids, and many of them are free as well. So with the iPad or the iPhone, you can use VoiceOver, you can zoom, get large text, contrast, and then we have different kinds of apps that are available. So there's one free one called Seeing AI, and it's text-to-speech. So you use the camera, and then it will identify what you are looking at. So for one of our technicians, it said he was a 35-year-old male looking happy. So it would tell people different things like that. You can also have it identify a label, and then it would enlarge, it would verbally tell you what's on the label so that you don't have to read it. So next one is IRA. It consists of some smart glasses which have a little camera. So this particular thing does cost money. You have to subscribe to it for $89 a month. It's got a little camera on the side, and then there are paid employees who are looking at what you're seeing and then can tell you what's going on or orient yourself if you're a little bit lost. Then next I have another app. This one's called Be My Eyes, and this one is a free app. And this free app can connect low vision and blind users to a network of sighted volunteers. And then you can video chat so that you can actually have a person somewhere, they may not even be in your state, but they will get on and say, oh, I see, hi, introduce themselves and say, I see that you're holding a can of tomato soup. And then you can get some help from wherever you are. Tap Tap See is another one that is a reading one. So when you have your voiceover on the phone, if you download this, you can tap on your phone and then the camera will see the item and then try to identify it for you. And it works pretty fast. You tap it just a few seconds later, it'll tell you what's going on there. And this is Dr. Day trying out some of the new eyes glasses. So these are pretty much like the eSight, and it's a different company. They enlarge things, and it's got the screen inside, so it's like having a miniature closed-circuit television inside there. And it can do distance or near. That one is New Eyes. We found that we've seen both of them at different fairs and national meetings. The eSight's image to Dr. Day and myself was sharper, and it seemed like a better piece of equipment. So that's what we have in our clinic. We purchased one to demonstrate. But all of these companies, they're coming out with new versions, and there's new things on the market all the time in technology. There's another gadget about reading medications. So Script Talk is one where you can get a medication label that has a little dot at the bottom, and then this little reader can verbally tell you what's in the medication. Or you can get things in Braille or large print. Orcam, and I believe they are upstairs too and have a table up there. That one has a little camera on the side of a pair of glasses that somebody wears, and then you point to what you are want to see what it says, and if you point once, it activates the camera and the text-to-speech, and then it'll read it to you. It can also do facial recognition, but you actually have to load the people there. So it doesn't just identify a stranger randomly, but you can load common people that you see in your life, probably up to a couple of hundred people, and then it will tell you, oh, there's Joe coming along. And that way you don't have to worry about identifying them. So we also, when we speak about the multidisciplinary role, kind of giving you an idea of what the OT and what the optometrist does. But we also have access to social work, and that's very important to make sure that everybody is connected with the resources that they need. And if they do need additional help, where to send them. Because sometimes you don't know where to look even for things to help you in your life. So we do have social worker access that we can refer patients to that are aware of all the community resources and can find out about different things that might be available to make your life quality better. We also, in the past year, we have an orientation and mobility instructor. And our orientation and mobility instructor does cane training, but also traveled around even without a cane, if you're using a telescope, to make sure that somebody is safe, and he can do scanning techniques as well as the cane. He takes people out in the real world. He goes downtown, he goes around our building to make sure that they can navigate safely and efficiently. So, and he gave me these definitions of orientation and mobility, because a lot of times people hear that O&M, orientation and mobility, and they won't be so sure of exactly what it means. So orientation is the ability for an individual with low vision or blindness to use environmental clues and cues to self-orient to their surroundings and locate their destination. And mobility is the ability to move from one point to another with safety, efficiency, and grace. So basically not walking into things, because that would not be very graceful. All right. So Russ takes people outside, and he wants to be sure that people, if they are going to cross the street alone, that they're safe in doing that. He may help people use public transportation, as well as using different traveling apps, telescopes, and GPS devices. And then finally, I also wanted to mention that we have our Living with Low Vision support group that was started in 2011. It meets the second Wednesday of each month from 1 to 3 o'clock. And we have a speaker each month that might be either from our eye center or from one of the community organizations that can help people with vision impairment. It's open to the public. You don't have to be visually impaired to come. Anybody can come if they want to participate and hear the different resource information. Okay, so we are all set, and then we can take any questions for a few minutes. Yes?
Yes. Dr. Wicker, right?
Yes, I am.
I'm a patient of yours. I wanted to thank you for helping me get to Kalamazoo.
Oh, good.
You're very busy, so I had this opportunity to thank you. And also, how would I get some of the information to get some of this stuff, like you were talking about, helping you with the cane and stuff?
Yeah, so come back to the low vision clinic
Mm-hmm.
and give us a call, and you can set up an appointment. And then you can also let them know that you have a cane, and we can have you work with Russ Ellis, our orientation and mobility instructor. We have a grant for his services, so there's no charge for any of that. But we have brochures upstairs at our table at University of Michigan, Kellogg Eye Center, and you can give us a call and come back again and see us. And I'm glad you liked the state's Kalamazoo program.
Yes, so make a call, set up an appointment, and come back to Kalamazoo.
Well,
I mean, come back to the.
yes, so
Kellogg Center,
you'll make an appointment and come back to the Kellogg Center, and then we'll figure out what you need and set up times to do that.
All right, Doctor. Thank you.
I have a question. Do you ever work with people that have had a head injury that are having difficulty tracking?
Yes, do you want to do that?
Yes, so we do the evaluation to start with, and then our occupational therapist, Ashley Housen, actually is trained to do that. We also have a machine called the Sanit, where it's just like this big screen, but there's a program uploaded for patients with strokes, et cetera, to train them how to kind of compensate and to move differently, to see differently, to move their eyes differently, to compensate.
What about
Yes.
the nystagmus that you can hold with?
You mean training for nystagmus?
No, well, training for hoping it's reoccurring.
I don't know that there's that much training for
Yeah.
nystagmus.
It's not
alone.
specifically for nystagmus alone, but our OT does have all different tracking activities, tracing activities, to try to get people to follow along a page easier. It doesn't erase the nystagmus though, but kind of helping people read while having a nystagmus.
Does Medicaid cover any of that?
Yes,
Yes.
Medicaid covers the visits. They cover the visits with us as optometrists, and they also cover the visit with the occupational therapist.
Yes.
I just had two questions. For the eye condition where there are no cones developed, is there any transplants that can happen for that? And then my second question is there any stem cell research for RP to, renew the cells damage on the back of the retina?
Yeah, so right now we don't have a way to add cones to somebody's eye and then have them go in and reconnect. So, but there is different kind of research going on with stem cells and different electronic things to try to get the retina to function better in the future. You want to add more about the research?
Yes, in the purple.
Is there any place where you can look at equipment that might be helpful?
So,
Any stores, any store that carries things like this?
so we don't have a walk-in store. So if you're a patient of ours, we could definitely set up a time for that. But I think Livonia has a low vision store where you can just walk in and take a look at the variety of equipment there. Yeah, in the back.
Yes, to follow up on the lady's question that just spoke, I work with the Bureau of Services for Blind Persons. There is a store, I don't know exactly what area you're in, there's a store called Zone in Troy, Michigan.
Did you guys all hear that? Able Zone in Troy, Michigan. Okay.
3456 Rochester Road.
Yes, in the back there.
Oh,
What about studies on glaucoma? Anything on the board?
I think we have a lot of researchers with a variety of diseases there. But I think that if you want a lot more information, I would say the Kellogg Eye Center website has a lot of information on the research, and also if you qualify to be a patient in the studies as well, if you want to do that. Yes. Yes, you could do that online. You could search for it online. There are local studies versus national studies that we're involved with.
Are you guys working in conjunction with the Foundation for the Blindness?
So there are some different foundations as well as the NIH that provides funding for research. Dr. Day and I are both clinical in the clinic, and we do some research. We do some different clinical research, but we do have researchers in our Kellogg Eye Center building that do basic research, some on cells in a petri dish, some with zebrafish, retinas and things like that. So they have funding, and they may have some funding from that source, but the National Eye Institute, which is the eye branch of the NIH, provides funding, as well as some other organizations.
So will they provide funding for the E-site also, or do you have to provide your own funding?
You do have to provide your own funding for the e-site. So I don't know if we have anybody here from the Michigan Bureau of Services for the Blind. Yes, oh, that was her. Okay. Yes, I don't know, those are expensive, so I guess maybe you can answer for us if you think that state agency would ever be able to fund the e-site.
Can you like try to get a GoFundMe page or something?
Yeah, the e-site company does help you. They have set up a GoFundMe page for that. We're hoping that the prices will come down a bit, like with technology, as there are more competitors in the market, and hopefully it'll become more affordable.
Do you have an opinion on ORCAM?
So we actually have that demo unit. We actually kind of like it quite a bit. That's why we bought it as a demo unit. So if you're interested in seeing it, make sure to make an appointment with Ashley Housen. She's trained to use it.
I believe they're here.
Are they here too? ORCAM? Oh, okay,
Yes.
upstairs?
Yeah, so
we
ORCAM
have to
is
go
here upstairs, so you can take a look at ORCAM and how that can read the page to you.
Yes, in the back, way in the back.
I was surprised with the ORCAM because it's little enough so you can lose it. But with these rare eye diseases like your rod cone disease where you just don't have the cones developing, is that a vulnerable kind of thing where the person might go completely blind because of the limited?
No, that particular condition would be one that somebody is born with, and then it would stay stable from then.
Be pretty stable.
Yes.
When you have a person that's young and their condition is not real stable, do you also recommend that as a backup they learn Braille?
So I think Braille is an excellent skill. The teacher consultants for the visually impaired are the ones in the school district who would encourage students to have Braille and connect them with Braille teachers. So we might say that it's a good idea in a letter, but it's really the school district that then provides those different services.
Yes, but as a clinic and a doctor area, if you feel like that would be beneficial for a student, by all means recommend it because that carries more weight than you know.
We do a letter to the school, and we do frequently mention that. Good, excellent points about all sorts of different topics. So I can tell that this group is really well informed because you can think of specific questions and specific details. So thank you very much for listening to us. I didn't see any other hands. Oh, one more.
Last one.
For the gal who was looking for Braille, look at these devices. In the Clinton-Macomb area, there's the Clinton-Macomb Library for the Blind, and they have a department where they have a lot of the different e-readers, the Ruby and some other brands, as well as some other things which you can check out and keep for up to 3 weeks. That way you can try to see if you would actually read it, if you would carry it around with you, if you'll use it at no cost to you. And I'm assuming other libraries for the blind would have similar things as well.
That's great. Great information. Good.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.